Hi, I'm Darla. My sister threw me out of our parents' anniversary dinner, and hours later, she called me crying. Not because she was sorry, because the caterers packed up and left, because the lights cut out, because the music died, and no one knew why. Except me. But the truth? This wasn't just about a dinner. It was about the name card that spelled my name wrong, the family photo I was cropped out of, the decades of silence that didn't punish me. They erased me. And now, they want to talk? What happens when the quiet one finally speaks? I arrived at the villa just after 5. The staff was still arranging centerpieces, adjusting the lighting, fussing over every little detail. I'd reviewed it all twice already, but still, I walked the perimeter again, clipboard in hand, quietly checking that every candle was placed evenly, that the welcome sign was centered, that the ice buckets were full. It was muscle memory by now. Event coordination had become my second skin after a decade of managing other people's milestones, corporate fundraisers, weddings, anniversary galas. But this was different. This was family. This was supposed to be mine too. The air inside smelled of citrus-spritzed linens and fresh florals, peonies and white roses, just like Mom liked. And everything was exactly as I'd planned. Or so I thought. Guests started arriving around 6. First came my cousin Andrea, who gave me a half hug and quickly floated off to the champagne bar. Then came Uncle Ray, who gave me a knowing nod and whispered, "Your sister's got quite the eye, huh?" I blinked. "Sorry?" I asked. He gestured to the oversized welcome sign by the front door. "Hosted with love by Isolde, our family's guiding light." I stood still. That wasn't the draft I submitted. My original file had said, "Co-hosted by Darla and Isolde." My name. Not centered, not bolded, but at least there. Now it was gone. Completely. I swallowed the heat rising in my chest and smiled politely at Uncle Ray. "She's always been good with fonts," I murmured. From across the room, I saw Isolde chatting with the caterer, tossing her hair and laughing like she'd just closed a deal. I could almost hear her voice from the week before. "Let me handle the RSVP site. People know me better. It'll streamline everything." I had nodded then, because fighting her always took more energy than it was worth. Later, as the chatter in the room swelled and guests floated toward their assigned seats, I walked discreetly toward the seating chart display. My eyes scanned the elegant calligraphy until they landed on Table 7, Darla Jensen. I blinked again. Table 7? That wasn't right. I pulled out my phone and opened the PDF I'd saved 2 days ago. My original seating had me at Table 1, front and center between Mom and Isolde. I'd left the third seat open on the left, just in case Dad wanted to say something during the toast. But now I'd been pushed all the way to the back, next to the swinging kitchen doors. I looked up and found Isolde walking toward me, a flute of Prosecco in one hand. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone even. "I think there's been a mix-up with my seat." She blinked at me, then glanced at the chart. "Oh, yeah. I asked the team to optimize the flow. It was getting tight up front. You know how space gets." My jaw tightened. "Right, of course. Gotta keep the flow optimal." She smiled, wide, polished. "You're amazing, Darla. This wouldn't have come together without you." I nodded, knowing she'd say that to the florist, too. Maybe even the guy parking cars out front. I made my way to Table 7. It was wedged between the service station and a portable drink cart. Every time a server pushed through the kitchen doors, the gust of cold air brushed my back. Someone had left a tray of finger food on the neighboring prep counter. I sat, adjusted my dress, picked up my name card. Darla Jensen, in a default font, black ink, no embellishments. Just as I was setting it down, an older guest walked up beside me. "Oh, could you check if they have sparkling water?" she asked, smiling. I blinked. I'm not with the staff." "Oh," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. You just looked so composed, clipboard and all." I nodded, letting the moment pass. I helped her straighten a fork anyway. Later, as the dinner service began and guests raised their glasses for the first toast, I watched from the corner of the room. A distant observer. Isolde's name floated again and again from speakers. Her generosity, her elegance, her ability to hold a family together. I texted Nadia under the table. Me. Is it just me, or is this whole thing off? There was a pause. Then her reply came through. A single word. Nadia. Finally. I looked back up. At the chandelier above the head table. At the flicker of Isolde's smile as cameras snapped photos of her beside our parents. Finally? Maybe I wasn't the only one who noticed. Nadia's text stayed on my screen longer than it should have. Finally. One word. But it said everything. I knew exactly what she meant, and I hated that she was right. I'd spent years brushing off moments like this, telling myself I was just being sensitive, that it was easier not to stir the pot. But standing there, pushed to the edge of my own family event, something clicked. Or maybe something cracked. I took another look around the room, this time with new eyes. The details I'd once obsessed over, the ivory linens, the curated playlist humming from the speakers, the delicate lighting that took 3 reschedules with the rental company, suddenly felt foreign. Everything looked pristine. Perfect even. But the way it made me feel was anything but. I made my way toward table 7, or, as it may as well have been labeled, Siberia. The moment I sat down, a cold breeze from the kitchen slapped the back of my neck. The swinging doors bumped open every 30 seconds with the clatter of dishes, servers rushing past with trays and hushed urgency. I couldn't even hear the main toast. A little boy wandered over from a nearby table, probably no older than 7. He dropped a spoon near my foot and crouched to grab it. Then he looked up and asked, with that blunt honesty kids always seem to have, "Why are you sitting with the kids?" I smiled tightly. "Because someone thought it was a good idea." He nodded solemnly, as if that somehow made sense to him, and trotted back to his seat. And I just sat there, frozen. This wasn't an accident. Nothing in my family was ever accidental. This was planned. Intentional. Deliberate. I took a breath, stood up, and found Isolde just as she was posing beside a family friend's daughter for a selfie, her practiced smile already in place. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light but firm. "I noticed my seat got shifted to the back." Isolde glanced at me, then at her phone, tapping the screen without missing a beat. "Oh, that. Yeah, I asked them to optimize the space. It was getting crowded up front, and honestly, you're always more comfortable away from the spotlight anyway, right?" My jaw tightened. I didn't realize this was about comfort. "Don't be dramatic, Darla," she said with a laugh that didn't touch her eyes. "It's just a seat, not a spotlight." But that's exactly what it was. Not a seat. A message. I went back to my assigned table and sat down again. The servers were refilling water glasses, and the clinking of silverware drowned out any remaining pride I had left in the evening. I picked up my name card to reset it, but something made me pause. Dahlia Jensen. Not even my name, not spelled right, and not even the correct last name, for God's sake. I blinked slowly, staring at it like maybe it would rearrange itself into the truth if I waited long enough. Meanwhile, I glanced toward the head table. There it was. Isolde Jensen, hostess and family legacy holder, in shimmering gold cursive. Underlit, centered, like a museum piece on display. You'd think she was running for office. The woman next to me, an in-law I barely recognized, leaned over and asked, "Oh, are you new to the family?" I blinked, then smiled with the kind of cold clarity that takes years to develop. "No, I'm just edited out of it." She looked confused, but laughed politely, as if I'd just told a clever joke. But inside, it hit me like a punch. When strangers forget your name, it's a mistake. When your family does it, it's a decision. I needed air. I made my way to the restroom, bypassing waiters and tipsy cousins who hardly glanced in my direction. I splashed water on my face and stared at the reflection staring back, one I barely recognized under the harsh vanity lights. Outside the door, Two women were talking. Isolde's really outdone herself, one of them said. She's such a natural, always the center of the family, you know? I mean, she basically holds everyone together, the other replied. It's impressive. And that dress. Wow. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of course they said that. Of course, that's what everyone saw. I stayed there another minute, just breathing. Then I returned to my table. I sat down quietly, picked up my name card again, and this time I folded it in half, slipped it into my purse. I texted Nadia. Me. If I left right now, you think anyone would notice? Her response came quickly. Nadia. I would. And so would they. The second the music stops. Something shifted in me. I didn't just feel small anymore. I felt angry. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I turned my gaze to the catering table near the entrance. The staff were moving smoothly, smiles painted on, hands full of trays and timing and control. Let's see how much of this night still belongs to her. The name card in my purse pressed against my thigh like a pebble in a shoe. Small, but impossible to ignore. Dahlia Jensen. That one careless typo said more about my place in that room than any speech ever could. I sat silently through the first few toasts, my smile frozen, my hands folded neatly in my lap. Then, someone from the mic called my name. And now, a few words from Darla, who made all this happen behind the scenes. I stood, stiffly smoothing my dress, heart steady. I wasn't nervous, just ready. I had prepared a short message, something heartfelt. I wanted to speak about what it meant to create space for each other, to acknowledge the quiet labor that holds families together. It wasn't grand, just a few words. I took the mic and said, sometimes the ones who stay late, who drive across town for table linens, who reorder flowers after the wrong ones arrive. And then the mic cut. A beat of confusion swept across the hall. Then Isolde stepped up beside me, smoothly slipping the mic from my hand, as if we had choreographed the moment. Thank you, Darla, she said, her voice warm and public-facing. That's exactly what we needed. Such a beautiful sentiment. And now, let's hear from Uncle Tom. The room clapped, unsure. I stepped back and sat down. My chair scraped against the floor, too loud in the brief hush. They didn't want my words. They wanted my labor. And my silence. My fingers curled around the edges of my folded napkin. I flashed back to junior year, our college arts showcase. My monologue, the one I spent weeks writing and memorizing, had been pulled at the last minute for time constraints. I remembered Dad's response when I told him, sometimes we support by stepping aside. He didn't mean it cruelly, but even then, he believed silence was the highest form of service. I had taken that lesson too deeply to heart. Moments later, as dinner plates were cleared, I felt motion behind me. Two young kids, probably Isolde's friends' children, started stacking cups and plates at our table. One whispered, Mom said start with the back tables. I watched them for a moment, then forced a chuckle. Need help? I asked gently. One of them looked up and shrugged. We're supposed to clean where people are done. He said it like it was obvious. A woman at a nearby table leaned toward me and chuckled. They always stick you near the exit, huh? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not without breaking. I sat still, letting the clinking of dishes fill the space in my chest where something used to live, something warm and hopeful. I had been sitting near exits all my life, not by chance, but by design. Easy to access, easy to ignore, and easy to remove. The room around me buzzed with light conversation, laughter, and the kind of ease that only comes when you've been taught you're entitled to a place at the center. My place had always been somewhere behind the scenes, setting tables, wrapping gifts, rewriting speeches so they sounded more on-brand for Isolde, making sure the playlist didn't repeat. I leaned back and let myself remember my 16th birthday. No speech, no cake, just a text from Mom. We'll celebrate when we're less slammed. My college graduation, no photos with family, because Isolde had an emergency call. The promotion party I threw for myself with 2 friends and a store-bought cake, while my parents went to Florida that weekend with my sister. And still, I showed up, again and again. I filled roles they never named, did tasks they never assigned, just so I wouldn't disappear. But somewhere along the way, disappearing became the only thing I knew how to do. Oprah once said, "You get in life what you have the courage to ask for." I'd never asked for anything. Not really. I thought being indispensable would earn me a seat at the table. Turns out, it just makes you easier to use. Across the room, a wave of laughter broke out. Someone had shared a story at the head table. I watched them all lean in, toast, laugh, pose for photos. "I was raised to be quiet," I whispered, barely audible over the ambient music. Not invisible. I didn't touch my plate. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the email chain with the catering team. I scrolled past the menus, the logistics, the backup wine orders, and found the contract. The one with my name on it. My signature, my deposit. I clicked into the contact for the lead coordinator. Let's see if they even notice who holds the real switch. I stared at the catering contract on my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. There was a strange calm in me, not the kind that numbs, but the kind that clears. I wasn't here to blow things up. I just needed to feel real again, seen, named. Not for credit, not for applause, but because I was tired of watching other people live inside the things I built. From across the ballroom, the MC announced the final toast before dessert. I heard the rustle of people turning their chairs, clinking glasses. I stood near the back, half shadowed by the archway leading into the hall. Isolde took the mic. Her voice, warm and perfectly modulated, filled the space with ease. "We are so blessed tonight, blessed to be surrounded by those who make this family what it is. To our parents, the rock of this household, to our incredible team who made this event flawless, and to each of you for showing up and proving that the Jensen family legacy is strong." A pause. I waited. She smiled. That was it. No mention of me. Not even a sideways nod. Not even a "my sister helped." I was a ghost among glassware. Then the projector screen lit up, and a soft piano track began. A slideshow rolled across the screen. Photos of mood boards, floral mock-ups, catering menus, hands placing centerpieces, a spreadsheet with timelines, color-coded tags, my handwriting, my phone in the corner of the frame. Each slide ended with the same footer. Brought to life by Isolde Jensen. My throat tightened. The room hummed with approval. Even Vera dabbed her eyes with a napkin. I watched my mother cry over a version of her daughter that never existed. "They don't erase you all at once," I whispered to myself. "They do it in inches, and applause drowns out the theft." I slipped toward the dessert table. People were beginning to mill around again. I was reaching for a fork when a woman I didn't recognize touched my arm. "Hi. Sorry. Are you Sophia's friend?" she asked with a smile. I blinked. "Sophia?" She gestured toward my mother. "I just assumed. Well, I didn't see you earlier. And the way everyone speaks about Isolde, I thought she was the only daughter." There it was. Another small slice off my silhouette. I met her gaze, steady. "I'm her daughter." Her face flushed instantly. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean—" "No need," I said, my smile calm, measured. "I thought the same thing for a while." She blinked again, then laughed nervously and backed away. I watched her join a group by the fireplace. I watched how easily people folded themselves into comfort when no one asked them to look harder. That was the moment I felt it. Not pain, not shame. Disappearance, like being eaten slowly by silence. I scanned the room for my mother. She was standing by the head table, laughing with one of Isolde's clients. I waited until they parted, then approached. "Mom," I said gently. She turned but didn't look at me. You're doing a wonderful job keeping everything running." Then she walked right past me. She hadn't looked me in the eye all night, not once. I didn't chase her. I stood there, rooted, in the middle of the celebration I built, a guest in the house I constructed from glue and grace. The hallway mirror at the back of the venue caught my reflection as I turned. My dress understated, my expression unreadable. I walked closer. "This is the last time I build something that doesn't have my name on it," I told the woman in the mirror. She didn't blink. I straightened my shoulders and turned on my heel. Back in the main hall, I moved with intention. Past the guests, past the pianist finishing up her last song, past Vera now clinking glasses with someone else. I found the lead caterer by the service table, scanning the checklist. I stood beside him. He looked up. "Everything going all right, Ms. Jensen?" I smiled politely. "How soon could you wrap this whole thing up?" His clipboard rested against his hip, half-folded printouts fluttering in his hand. I didn't flinch when I approached the caterer. My tone was even, my voice controlled. "We're beginning breakdown," I told him, looking directly into his eyes. He blinked. Yes, ma'am. Timeline updated then?" 30 minutes, everything wraps. Quietly." He nodded, adjusted his earpiece, and walked toward the kitchen. A woman in a sparkly beige dress with oversized pearls brushed past me, then turned back. "Oh, could you grab more napkins from the back? They're running low at table 2. I looked at her, not rude, not emotional, just flat. "I'm not staff," I said. "I'm the host's sister." Her eyes widened. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw the clipboard and, well, you looked so professional." I nodded once, said nothing else. Then I turned, walked straight to the service table, and dropped the clipboard in the trash. That clipboard had followed me for years, literally and metaphorically, at birthdays, Thanksgivings, baby showers. While Isolde posed for photos and shook hands, I carried the clipboard. I fixed the last-minute chaos. I caught the missing centerpiece orders. I wrote her thank you notes when she forgot. They trained me to be useful, not visible. But today, I was both. As I crossed the ballroom, I spotted the photographer near the back hall. He was scrolling through photos with Vera and Isolde, images already queued for the family newsletter, no doubt. I didn't mean to stop, but I found myself watching. The photos were clean, beautifully framed. My mother in pearls, Isolde in satin. A dozen guests posed beside them, all laughing or raising glasses. Not one photo had me in it. I watched him tap open a folder. Family portraits. I stepped closer. There were 6 images, all labeled with captions. The Jensen legacy. Sisters in strength. Mother and heir. Not one image included me. One was from earlier that evening, our parents standing in front of the anniversary cake. I had lit those candles. I had pulled them from the emergency backup box after the originals were forgotten. The edge of my arm was visible in the frame, reaching in with a lighter. They had cropped it out. Vera smiled at the photographer. "These will be great for the alumni newsletter, especially this one," she said, pointing to a shot of her and Isolde mid-laugh. I stepped in then. "Who's the family in these?" Vera turned. "What?" "In the photos. Who's the family in them?" She blinked. "Oh, Darla, don't be sensitive. You were busy helping. You're never still long enough to photograph." I stared at her. "You've spent years editing me out, so no one has to question your image." "Stop ruining the night," she snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded, turned, and walked away. Not toward the restroom, not toward the kitchen. I walked straight down the hallway, away from the ballroom, away from the music, away from them. The hallway mirror waited at the end like an invitation. I stood in front of it, watching my reflection, noticing the details. The dress I chose carefully because Vera once said navy suited me. The shoes I wore because Isolde's email said the event was semi-formal. The necklace Dad had given me when I got my first client. An afterthought handed over with the receipt still tucked in the box. "My name," I whispered, "will never be forgotten again. Especially not by me." I took out my phone. In the Notes app, I typed a single line. "No one gets to rewrite me anymore." Then I opened the messages with the catering coordinator. I'd written a draft earlier, but hadn't sent it. Now I was ready. "Begin breakdown. Full cancellation within 30. I tapped send. And I walked back into the ballroom. Not with a clipboard, but with my name. I lingered just beyond the archway, still within earshot of the music, but far enough to feel the cool air from the back hallway. My phone was in my palm, screen aglow, text already typed. All I had to do was press send. And this time, my fingers didn't tremble. I stepped toward the ballroom, steady, when Isolde appeared like smoke, sharp, smooth, invasive. "You've been pacing," she hissed, her voice low but firm. "You're making people uncomfortable." I raised an eyebrow, said nothing. "If you can't be a team player, maybe you should step out," she added, smiling wide for the guests milling nearby, who turned quickly, pretending not to hear. My jaw clenched. Not from rage, but clarity. "I've stepped up," I told her, my voice calm. "Not out. You just don't like what that looks like." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You always make it about you. Even tonight." I stared at her for a second. Really stared. How often had I let her get away with that line? How often had she tossed that phrase like a net, dragging me back into silence? Not this time. I gave her a single nod, neither surrender nor submission, and turned my back. I didn't head to the restroom, didn't cry in a hallway. I went straight through the staff corridor, past the storage crates and half-empty water jugs, and out into the vendor lot behind the venue. The night air hit me like a reset button. My phone buzzed again, another group photo being shared in the family thread. I didn't even open it. Instead, I opened the catering group message. "Me, initiate full closure. Pull dessert first, then bar, audio, lighting. Order matters. Lead, received. Confirming 15-minute wind down. All under your authority? Me. Confirmed. Lead, understood. Beginning now." I slipped into the driver's seat of my car parked nearby and rolled the windows halfway down. The hum of the venue's generator still buzzed through the lot, mixing with distant laughter from the back patio. My hands rested on the steering wheel. My breathing was steady. Let's see how well they celebrate when the lights dim on their delusion. I didn't need to break a single glass. All I had to do was take my name off the list of enablers. Inside, the disruption began like a whisper. The dessert table didn't get replenished. The bar service slowed to a crawl, then halted. The music skipped, then faded. The lights didn't dim romantically. They flickered like an outage. Confused glances started to spread. A couple stood mid-conversation, holding empty flutes. Guests looked around. Vera leaned toward Isolde, whispering sharply. Isolde waved her hand dismissively at first, still trying to maintain control, her smile intact, but I saw her lips press tight. Her eyes flick around the room. Then a server stepped over and whispered something in Vera's ear. I didn't need to hear it to know what was said. Vera's spine stiffened. She scanned the room like someone realizing they'd lost their purse. Then she realized I wasn't there. Good. For once, I wasn't where they left me. And they felt it. The best part? I wasn't watching this unfold with satisfaction or smugness. I wasn't burning the house down. I simply flipped the breaker on the room where I'd been told to whisper, to serve, to stand off frame. I turned on the AC in my car and leaned back. The night sky stretched wide overhead. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the first honest breath I'd taken all night. Then my phone buzzed. "Isolde, what the hell did you do?" I smiled. Finally, someone was asking me a real question. Isolde's voice still rang in my head, sharp, breathless, barely composed. But the moment I stepped back into the venue, I saw her for exactly what she was. Not unraveling, calculating. The lights were returning to full brightness. Music resumed. But the playlist had changed. Less jazz, more upbeat. A cover-up, nothing more. People were laughing again, performing like it hadn't all nearly collapsed 10 minutes ago. And then I saw him. Grayson. He stood near the patio entrance, glass in hand, that familiar tilt to his shoulders. Always too relaxed, too confident. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, it was him. He caught my gaze and gave me a tentative smile, the kind people wear when they're not sure if they're welcome. "Darla?" he said, approaching slowly. "Didn't expect to run into you tonight." "Clearly," I replied, blinking slowly. He leaned in awkwardly for a side hug. I didn't move. "Isolde invited me," he explained. "Said you'd be thrilled." I let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Just enough to keep from breaking my teeth. "She did?" I said flatly. A flash of confusion crossed his face. "She said this was a big moment for your family. She thought it might be, I don't know, meaningful. Closure, maybe?" "Closure?" I echoed. He nodded slowly. "Look, I wouldn't have come if I thought—" "I know," I cut in. "It's not your fault." He glanced behind me. "Anyway, I'll get out of your hair." "You already are." He gave a soft smile, nodded, and stepped away. The second he disappeared into the crowd, Isolde glided in, like she'd been waiting for the curtain call. "Wasn't that a nice surprise?" she said sweetly. "I thought it'd be fun. You two had history." I stared at her. "Was this before or after you shut down dessert service?" She shrugged. "Come on, Darla, don't be such a buzzkill. You used to have a sense of humor." I tilted my head. "You didn't invite him for nostalgia. You invited him to rattle me, and I let you." Her face tightened for just a second. Then the smile returned. "You always read too much into things." "No," I said, finally seeing it clear. "I always assumed you cared. That was the real mistake." I walked away, straight to the back again. I wasn't about to give her another second of my air. Behind the bar, I stood in the shadows and opened my phone. I hadn't looked at the family group chat in hours, but something pulled me back in. Every message I had sent during the planning, every photo of the color palette, vendor list, floral sample, left on scene. No response. Not even a thumbs up. I scrolled back, watching my own efforts vanish into the digital void. Then I saw it. Screenshots. Of me. Of my notes. Sent between Isolde and Vera. "She's going full Bridezilla, and it's not even her event." Control freak. "At least she's useful. Let her wear herself out over napkin folds." My stomach turned, not with surprise, but recognition. This wasn't new. This was the tone they used with me behind polished smiles and performative gratitude. They never intended for me to be part of this. Just useful, then discarded. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel hot anger. It was cold, settling, solid. I opened my messages to the catering manager again. Me. Full withdrawal. Leave nothing behind. A pause. Then the reply came. "Understood. Reassigning staff now. Trucks en route." I took one last look at the chat thread, then deleted myself from it. No goodbye, no explanation. The thread still existed, but it was finally missing me. I walked out back toward the vendor lot, the soft thump of speakers behind me fading with each step. My phone buzzed again, this time from Nadia. "Nadia. You okay?" I stared at the screen. Me. "I think I'm done." Her response came quick. "Nadia. You're finally free." I sat in the driver's seat with my phone glowing in the dark, Nadia's live stream playing quietly in my lap. The event space buzzed in the distance, faint sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, soft jazz rolling across the speakers. It could have been any evening, any other family's celebration, but not this one, not anymore. "Initiate full withdrawal protocol," I said into the phone. "Stagger the shutdown to be visible. Dessert first, then bar, audio, then lights." The catering supervisor didn't ask questions, just, "Understood?" Full authority? Yes, I confirmed. He paused, then, 15-minute wind down. I'll alert floor captains now. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Do it. I ended the call and let my head rest against the seat. Inside, things began to shift. I watched as one of the dessert attendants began covering the cake display with a linen, folding napkins like it was the end of a funeral. A group near the bar looked puzzled as their champagne glasses were left unfilled. The server gave a polite shrug and backed away. The music stuttered, then faded. People looked up from their conversations. One woman leaned toward her husband and asked something I couldn't hear. He shrugged. Maybe they thought it was a power surge, or a DJ swap, something benign. Vera's voice cut through the quiet. What's going on? She stood now, craning her neck toward the kitchen doors. Her expression was tight, scanning for someone, probably me. And then, Isolde. She rose like a politician caught mid-scandal, walking briskly to the mic. She tapped it. Nothing. Tried again. Dead air. I could almost hear her heart racing. The room fell into a confusing hush. People whispered now. Small, jittery glances passed between tables, and I sat in my car, watching it all unfold. I didn't feel smug or bitter. Just done. They always made me feel invisible. Now they get to feel what I lived. One cousin texted me, the screen lighting up with a simple, "Did something happen? Are you okay?" I replied, "Everything's finally as it should be." Back inside, the breakdown continued like clockwork. The cake cart was rolled out quietly. Photographers packed their gear without a word. The DJ gave a polite nod to the bartender before leaving through the side door. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I hadn't raised my voice or flipped a table. I hadn't stormed in, demanding recognition or revenge. All I had done was withdraw what was mine. The pieces I built, the systems I coordinated, the trust they had spent years assuming I would never revoke. I sat in silence. The air conditioner hummed softly. The dome light of my car cast a faint glow over my purse sitting beside me, half open, the name card still tucked inside. Then, movement in the rearview mirror. I watched Isolde burst out the back door of the venue, heels clacking against the pavement, fury all over her face. "Darla!" she shouted, eyes darting. I didn't get out. She spotted me, marched over. "You embarrassed me!" she hissed, arms flailing like a frantic actress at the climax of a bad soap opera. "You ruined our parents' anniversary." I rolled down the window halfway. "No," I said calmly. "You did. When you made it about your spotlight instead of their story." She blinked, caught off guard by the stillness of my voice. "They're our parents," she snapped. "Then why do I always feel like the stranger in the family photo?" Isolde stood frozen, mascara smudging under her eyes. She had no answer. I rolled the window up. She turned, stormed back toward the building, muttering something I didn't care to hear. Back home, I walked through my apartment door, kicked off my shoes, and tossed my purse on the couch. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The silence was enough. I opened my laptop, navigated to the family cloud folder, and began removing my name from every event file. Every checklist, every PDF, every budget log, every invoice. Delete, delete, delete. Let them start from zero next time. I'm no longer their foundation. I closed the laptop and poured a glass of water. Just as I sat down, my phone lit up on the table. "Mom, incoming call." I stared at it for 3 full rings, then flipped it face down. Not tonight. I ignored the first 5 calls. I watched them light up my screen. Isolde, then Mom. Then the family group chat, lighting up like Christmas morning after a power outage. I let them all ring. Then I turned off the sound. But silence never lasts in a family like mine. By sunrise, they weren't just calling. They were panicking. Isolde's first voicemail came in at 6:42 a.m. The voice was cold, clipped. "You made your point. I hope you're satisfied. Call me." By 7:19, it cracked. Literally. Her second message came in the form of a breathless voice, trying to hold itself together, but already unraveling. Can you just... Can we talk, please? You didn't have to go that far. You knew they'd blame me for everything. Pause. I didn't think it would crash the whole night. I replayed that one twice. She wasn't lying. She didn't think it would crash the whole night, because she never once believed I had the power to do it. That was the real message. You taught me how to disappear. I just returned the lesson. Around noon, I got a text from my cousin Madison. Hey, was the catering issue your call? Everyone's freaking out. Also, thanks for not slapping Isolde. Wish I could've. I didn't answer that one either. I went about my day, grocery shopping in sweats and a hoodie, blending into a Sunday afternoon like any other person who didn't just detonate their family's illusion of unity. Around 3, a new ping. Madison again. BTW, this was in the scrapbook. Thought you should know. Attached was a photo, a beautiful leather-bound album, embossed with my parents' anniversary date. Beneath it, a dedication page. To Vera and Harlan, thank you for teaching me what love looks like. With all my heart, your daughter, Isolde. I stared at the image for a long time. The design was mine. The formatting, the layout, even the font. It was the same I used in every client presentation. I had spent 3 nights curating those images, writing that dedication. It had originally said, your daughter, Darla. She'd covered it with a reprint. Even in apology, she couldn't let me be seen. The moment passed not with fury, but a numb sort of awareness. I wasn't surprised, just tired. Later that night, I returned home from errands and set my keys down with a little more force than necessary. The apartment was quiet. I didn't turn on the TV or play music, just the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the space. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, staring at the dark screen of my phone. After a few minutes, I tapped play on the last voicemail. This one wasn't from Isolde. It was Dad. His voice was low, a little strained. Your mother's very upset. I don't think any of us expected this from you. No, how are you? No, what happened? Just that. I put the phone down and leaned over the kitchen table, hands pressed against the wood. I didn't cry right away, but eventually it came. Quietly, like rain. Not for what I'd done, not for the fallout, but for the years I'd believed it would ever be different. When the sobs slowed, I stood, walked to my bedroom, and powered on my laptop. In the family archive folder, I found the original scrapbook files. My work. The real version. I opened a new folder and renamed it. For me. No more group folders, no more shared edits, no more permissions required. I printed out the original dedication, signed my name at the bottom again, this time in pen, and slipped it into a personal binder. For the first time, my story wouldn't be repurposed or rebranded. I made tea. The act of boiling water and steeping it grounded me, brought the moment down to something I could hold. As I set the mug on the counter, I heard it. A knock. 3 measured taps. I froze. My apartment didn't get unannounced visitors. I approached slowly, barefoot on cool tile, and peeked through the peephole. It was Vera. She didn't knock again. Just stood there until I opened the door. Vera didn't even say hello. She looked at me the way someone inspects water damage, trying to assess how bad it really is beneath the surface. We need to talk, she said. I stepped aside, but only enough for her to enter the small foyer. Not the living room, not the kitchen. I didn't offer her tea or a chair. She didn't ask. She glanced around, absorbing the unfamiliarity. My home wasn't hers to recognize. You embarrassed this family, she began. You made a scene. I tilted my head slightly. No, I made a decision. She blinked. You kicked me out, I continued, tone steady. I just made it official. Her jaw tightened. You always twist things to make yourself look righteous. I executed a contract I signed. That's not drama, Mom. That's logistics. That's clarity. Vera opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence that followed had weight. like sandbags sitting between us. She tried again, this time with a softer edge. Your father hasn't slept. Isolde is shattered. I don't think you realize what you've done. I stayed quiet. You've made us look like a circus, she added. Maybe that's what it always was, I said. You just never noticed who was holding the tent up. She crossed her arms. You sound bitter. If telling the truth shames this family, maybe it's time this family faced the truth. It wasn't about you, Darla. It's never been about me. That's the whole point. And that ends now. Her eyes narrowed. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said quietly. It makes me free from needing to be like you. That landed harder than I expected. She stepped back slightly, as if the words carried physical weight. She didn't respond right away. Then she shifted tones again. Tactical now, controlled. People will talk. You know that, right? Once something like this leaks out, let them. Vera studied me, and for the first time in years, I saw something flicker in her face. Not anger, not pity, uncertainty. She turned toward the door. This wasn't how I raised you. No, I said. You raised me to believe I didn't need a voice. I raised myself to know I deserve one. She reached for the handle. And what now? She asked over her shoulder. You just walk away from us? I walked toward myself. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. But just before it closed, she set a cream-colored envelope on the entry table. Then she left. I didn't touch the envelope. Not right away. I stood in the foyer, breathing, feeling the echo of her presence fading. I closed the door, not just to keep the air in, but because that conversation was over. I wasn't shaking. They never saw me until I walked away. And now, they couldn't stop looking. Later that night, as I cleared off the kitchen table, I noticed the envelope still sitting untouched. I picked it up. It had my name on the front. No, sweetheart. No, love, Mom. Just Darla. I didn't open it. Not yet. Some truths come handwritten. Others, lived. The envelope sat on the table for hours. Not because I was avoiding it, but because I needed it to wait for me. For once, I got to choose the terms of the conversation. By mid-morning, the tea had gone cold in my mug, and I was finally ready. I slid a finger under the flap and opened the envelope with a quiet breath. The paper inside smelled faintly of the perfume Vera always wore. Gardenia, cloying, and too much. Dear Darla, it began. Already off to a manufactured start. The letter read like something written by a committee. Clean sentences, hollow sentiment. Family makes mistakes. Let's not let this divide us forever. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just vague references to misunderstandings and disappointments that needed healing. I circled one sentence in pencil. You've always been emotional. I laughed. Out loud, loud enough that it startled me. Then I folded the letter back in half and dropped it in the recycling bin under my sink. After that, I sat down to check my voicemail. One was from Harlan, my father. It was 10 seconds long. Just the ambient sound of the television in the background and his breath shifting against the speaker. The second message was shorter. Call your mother. That was it. No, hi. No, how are you? No, I'm sorry this got so bad. And yet, it said everything. It reminded me of every moment growing up when something tense had happened and he'd duck his head, mutter, "Talk to your mom," and vanish into the yard or the garage. His silence wasn't neutral. It never had been. It was complicity, polished as calm. That afternoon, I shifted. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with something quieter. I sat down at my desk and opened my work files. Client emails, vendor confirmations, upcoming galas, retirement banquets. I lost myself in the rhythm of building something I actually had ownership over. By the end of the day, I had rewritten my website bio. I changed the tagline. Events designed for the people who do the real work. For the first time, I included a photo of myself, not cropped, not backlit, not backstage, just me, smiling, owning it. That evening, Nadia invited me to dinner. Nothing fancy. A booth near the window at a local Thai place. We split green curry and spring rolls and laughed until our ribs ached. At one point, she raised her wine glass and said, "To being seen." I clinked mine back gently. To seeing ourselves first. The food was good. The company was better. There was no tension in my chest. No checklist in my head. No pressure to be useful. I was just there. Present. It felt strange. And good. Like a pair of shoes that finally fit after years of wearing borrowed ones. Later that night, I curled up on the couch with a blanket and the lights low. I hadn't checked my phone in hours. I'd forgotten how that felt. But it buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I wasn't ready to say it at the time, but thank you. Isolde. I stared at the screen. No emoji. No punctuation beyond the period. Just her words. Plain. Honest? I didn't reply. Not yet. Some messages deserve to float for a while. Some closure doesn't knock. It whispers. I didn't answer Isolde's message. I didn't need to. But I did what most humans can't resist. I opened her Instagram. There it was. A flawless carousel of filtered snapshots, candlelit tables, a glittering cake, guests in soft focus, holding drinks and pretending nothing had fractured. Isolde in the center of it all, her smile wide, her arm curled perfectly around Vera. The caption, "A night to remember, so proud of what we built. The perfect evening with the perfect family." My stomach didn't drop. Not this time. I scrolled through the comments. "You're such a great sister." "Amazing night. Everything was beautiful." Classic Isolde. Always so organized and elegant. I stared at the screen, then tapped and held one particular comment. I took a screenshot. Not for revenge, for record. Not a single photo of me. You'd think I never showed up. But I did. I was there for every checklist, every napkin fold, every invoice, every change order, when the first batch of flowers showed up wrong. And that was the last time I'd let my presence be edited out. That afternoon, I sat down and opened my laptop. I logged into LinkedIn and began typing. Invisible work, what it really looks like behind beautiful events. It wasn't bitter, it wasn't petty, it was honest. I wrote about quiet labor, about the people who stay up late, make the backup calls, stay behind to reset the room when no one notices the cake was delivered half frozen. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Instead, I attached side-by-side images, planning sheets, vendor emails, timelines, color-coded breakdowns. All mine. All signed, footed, and built by me. Within hours, the post started to spread. Within a day, it went viral. People I hadn't spoken to in years commented, "You just told my story." This hit me harder than I expected. "I've been Darla, and I'm done too." One comment stopped me cold. I pinned it. Sometimes the ones who build are never seen. Until they stop building. Neither Vera nor Isolde commented. But I did get an email. "Vera, you've made this a public spectacle." A text from Isolde. "Why are you painting me like a villain?" I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I was no longer in their portrait. Later that week, I signed a contract with a national women's organization to speak about emotional boundaries and invisible labor. The fee wasn't huge, but the value, it was mine. I launched my redesigned website. First image, me. Not my work. Not a floral arrangement. Not a venue. Me. I smiled, clicked publish, and felt something release. I wasn't fixing someone else's chaos. I wasn't begging to be acknowledged. I was writing my own script. One morning, I stopped by the venue, not out of sentiment, but curiosity. It was empty now. The lights were off, tables bare, curtains drawn back. I walked through the space like it was a memory I'd finally decided to own. At the center of the ballroom, I paused. The place where the head table once sat. where my name never belonged. I was never supposed to be in their photo, I whispered to myself. I was always meant to be behind the lens. Then I pulled my phone from my pocket, raised it toward the window, and took a picture of the morning light spilling through the drapes. Now, I own the camera,